Hello, this is Jeremy, formerly of Proles of the Round Table. And I know it has been a long time that we've been sort of radio silent. And that's partially on me. After everything kind of went south, I ended up taking quite a long break in spite of the fact that I had all of the recordings of the last two episodes kind of sitting with me. This will be the first of those two, which I intend to complete, one this month and then one next month, mostly because I don't want to, expend a lot of finances on, running these both in a single month, which would cost extra on the old Libsyn. So in any case, again, this is an episode on Romania, which was intended to be the first of a series of episodes on people with complicated legacies. Justin and Ethan in happier times collaborated on this one. Alex is the host, so you'll hear their voices. And I really hope you both enjoy this and get some education out of it. In terms of what everybody's doing, Justin and 8Hop have not really moved on to any new projects yet at this point. The bulk of everyone else is now involved with Invent the Future. So they've got that project going on. I know they've released a few episodes, which are really good. I have stepped back a bit from explicitly leftist, and revolutionary sort of things. I started a little, I suppose, a creative endeavor called Bad Influence, which if you're interested in checking that out, it's currently only on Libsyn. It should eventually end up on all platforms, which is the way they operate. But at the moment, if you go to badinfluence.libsyn.com, you can check out at least the first episode right now. The second one should be going up in the middle of August. And that's, I guess, where everybody is at the moment. I can't say that I'm not still a bit devastated at the loss of Proles. It was a huge part of my life for a very long time, and I both enjoyed doing it and felt like it really had a purpose. There were reasons it had to end, and there's nothing that I can, do to change that. But I hope that these last two episodes really bring back some of that mission, I suppose. I again hope you enjoy it, and hope you hear something that helps you out in the future, sort of discussions and whatnot. I may end up keeping the Libsyn going for a while, or I may end up taking it back down. It kind of depends in terms of finances where I am. But I know that a lot of people have pulled down the older episodes and put them up on the various Google Drives, which makes them accessible to everyone anyway. So, but I do know that having it all in one place that you can easily access is convenient for people. And, again, which is why I've kind of gone back and forth on this. But I do want to thank you so much for listening. And as always, solidarity forever.
Welcome to Proles of the Round Table.
Hello and welcome to Proles of the Round Table, where we sit down, have a few drinks or kombucha, and talk Marxist history. We wanted to thank our episode's primary sponsor, who enabled us to get identical red tracksuits for the whole podcast gang. Love that tracksuit. It has like hammers and sickles on it. It looks like Adidas. We look like Russian b-boys. It's really nice.
Got that drip.
Yeah, it's good. Big thanks to our sponsor, the International Monetary Fund.
Thanks, guys.
So today we have a couple special boys with us. You may have heard of them. It's Ethan and Justin. How you boys doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, we're on a skeleton crew here today.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's because of the topic.
Because no one wants to talk about this.
No
I don't want to talk about this.
You have to
I
do
know, I
the
know.
work. Yeah.
I know.
It's literally the two boys and the host, which is your boy Alex. So go ahead and start talking about what you're drinking, I guess.
Well, so this is Ethan again. I'm drinking a Paulaner Hefeweizen. It's pretty good Hefeweizen. It's brewed in accordance with the Bavarian purity law, using only water, malt, hops, and yeast. That's weird.
Purity law? That sounds pretty fascist.
I don't know about it, but it's like beer eugenics.
Another primer for our episode.
Goddamn.
All right. And then this is Justin, and I am drinking Resolution Blueberry Acai is how I think they say it's pronounced.
Yeah, it's acai.
Golden Ale. And it's like it's really good for a diet beer, which is what it is because it's 98 calories. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Watch this figure.
But the main reason, it's not going to happen. The main reason I got it is because it's 3.5% and still tasty. So since I'm talking tonight and I'm not trying to get trashed, I might get into the IPAs a little later in the night.
Trying to be strategic. Also,
Yes.
it's resolution. Why not revolution? It's bullshit.
Nice.
Because they're not workaround.
Yeah, true.
Sad.
Sad.
Not nice.
And it's your boy Alex. I'm back on that booch drinking GT Synergy organic kombucha. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you.
What you boys talking about today that you want to avoid so badly and no one else wants to be in on it?
So we're talking about Romania, and we're going to talk about a little guy called Nicolae Ceaușescu. So shout out to the dipshit on Twitter who assumed we were just going to be like, this guy's great, actually, and love you. Like,
Come on.
Fuck you guys. But yeah, Justin and I were just a few minutes ago, we're talking like, if we had to do this in 30 seconds, we'd be like, it's complicated, but Romania has been fucked forever.
For its entire existence.
Yeah, and you guys had a bunch of disclaimers, right? What are these, huh?
Well,
You know,
just it's complicated.
It's
And
complicated.
like,
We are not trying to rehabilitate him.
No,
but we are going to talk about some of the positive things that he did, and the fact that, which Ethan and I were talking about earlier, even shitty communism is better than capitalism, and so Romania is worse off for them having cooed Ceaușescu.
which sucks because that guy was whack. I mean, and that's the disclaimer. If you turn it off right now, just know, listen, we're not like
Building him up.
Ceaușescu did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Motherfucker did a lot wrong.
things wrong.
But like he was.
But it's complicated.
It's complicated, and you got to do a historical materialist
And it
analysis.
was not fun. I mean,
This was the hardest time I've ever had finding good sources.
Yes. I mean, that's what another thing I was talking about earlier is it's at least as hard, probably more hard to find good sources on Ceaușescu than it is to find good sources on Stalin, because he was the most hated figure because he was like the last man standing in Europe.
In the communist bloc.
In the communist bloc, and they needed to destroy him so that they could get into East Germany, which I'll talk about towards the end of the episode. But you cannot find shit. And one of the things that I'll address up front is I'm not going to talk about hearsay, and because that's a lot of the accusations that are leveled against Ceaușescu is some guy said that he did this horrible thing. and as we know with Stalin, that, not that I'm comparing the two, but as we know, people can say whatever the fuck they want about communists and people will believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
And people had every reason, mostly to avoid jail or execution, to denounce Ceaușescu as soon as he fell, because they were trying to save their own ass or trying to get a position in the next, the next government. Yeah. So
there's plenty of shit that he did that is documented.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So don't worry about it.
Well, the document is right.
But I think where we wanted to start was just kind of give I'm not going to go through the entire history of the country Romania because it's stupid, but friend of the show, Vlad the Impaler is from Romania. That guy sucks. We'll talk about him in a little bit, actually, unfortunately. It's Romania. They're weird, man.
We have a Romanian comrade on Discord that was actually excited about this episode so that we could like, because there they have probably an even harder time.
Oh God, I can't
Like,
even
yeah,
imagine. But also, Romanian is it's a really intense language. So I apologize if I I tried to look up how to say things. I'm gonna do my best, but we may
we're gonna fuck
mispronounce
it
a couple
up.
things.
Yeah.
So okay, so yeah, so okay. So Romania has kind of always been like it's a multi-ethnic. It's always been kind of a multi-ethnic nation, state, country, whatever. Where you've got the ethnic Romanians are descended from the like Dacians or Daci. I don't know how you say it, but like there's some ethnic group like medieval. I don't know. But that's like there's like ethnic Romanians, but then there's also a lot of like people from there are a lot of Hungarians. There have been a lot of Hungarians there, a lot of Jewish people, a lot of
Germans,
a lot of Slavs, Serbs, yeah, all kinds. It's a very multi-ethnic thing, which not a lot of people were huge fans of for most of Romania's history.
Right.
Yikes.
Yeah, and so like,
and Romanians were a persecuted minority for a lot of their existence, which is why I think that reaction is so easy to take hold.
Yeah, and later I want to talk about like we've talked about nationalism a little bit in terms of like nationalism in a colonized nation. Like I think nationalism in somewhere like the DPRK or Cuba is very different than whatever the hell they were doing in the 70s in Romania, because it's very different material conditions.
Heavily inspired by which we'll get to. Heavily inspired by the DPRK in China.
It was actually, yeah. Ceaușescu loved Juche.
Yeah, he did.
Or the idea of Juche. I don't know. I don't know how much he applied it. Anyway, it's complicated.
This episode's off to a great start.
It's hard. So anyway, so I'm just gonna start at like the 30s because
whoa,
what?
We're gonna miss all of Ceaușescu's early life.
Okay, well, you can talk about you can talk about him.
I mean, okay, so
I'm just okay. You can talk about him as a dude. Go ahead. I don't have any info about that.
Dude.
Yeah, I mean, I guess before the 30s, there's not a lot to talk about.
Well,
what are you?
Why did you bring it up, Justin?
Because there's still stuff to talk about.
So sad.
Go for it. I'm just kidding.
His dad was an alcoholic, an abusive alcoholic, and his mom was a kind of a puritanical type moral figure, who was allowed her husband to beat them, but very much doted on Nicolae. They were a peasant family, so he was born in 1918, so a year after the revolution, the true revolution. But as Romania was going through like tough times economically, especially after the collapse. The stock market crash of 1929. So at 11 years old,
you jump into 1929?
You said 30s.
I'm just that's the joke. Just kidding.
So at 11 years old, in 1929, he dropped out of elementary school and went to Bucharest, where he worked at a shoe shop, and that's where he started to kind of come in contact with the proletarian movement, which was extremely small in Romania. It wasn't a large movement.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and so like Romania was a mostly agrarian society. I think it was like 20% of people lived in cities around 1930, like late 20s. And then like just a couple things about like in 1930 specifically, only 57% of Romanians could read. And 85% of the people who could read only had a primary education. Like it was, I think 8.6% had completed high school and 1.6% had gone to a university. And men were 4 times as numerous as women in that 1.6. So, and then like the demographics were like really traditional and fucked up, like birth and death rates in 1930, highest in Europe. It's a very like it's heavily inspired by or heavily influenced by Orthodox Christianity,
right? Which
that ties in with there's a group I got to talk about because it'll come up a lot in the next couple minutes. The Iron Guard. So Justin was talking about like the proletarian movement was fairly small. You had a couple like peasants parties. All this at this point, it's a monarchy. It's a constitutional monarchy. The king is King Carol, I think the second. But but you still have political parties because after World War I, everybody in Europe was like, hey, let's try this republic thing, and like to varying degrees of success. But anyway, in the 1930s, you've got this group called the Iron Guard that starts. It's the paramilitary wing of this fascist organization called the Legion of the Archangel of Michael, which is
sounds great.
Just sounds awesome. And then so if I refer to legionnaires, I'll probably just say Iron Guard, but legionnaires are these Iron Guard guys. They were led by this guy named Corneliu Codreanu. And in the 30s, they were actually getting funding and support from Nazi Germany. So they were just going hard on the fascism thing. Yeah. There were a couple other fascist parties. They didn't just have one, but this was the biggest one.
Very nice.
So in 1933, the Iron Guards assassinate the premier, Ion Duca. And then at this point, it starts this like really quick turnover of governments. Like they were going through like different governments. I don't remember. I didn't write down the exact number for these couple years, but Iron Guards were basically fighting like cops and other political parties in the streets, starting with this assassination. In the 33, the railroads went on strike. Like all the railroad workers went on strike. And as a result of these strikes, the government imprisoned a bunch of communists, including a guy named Gheorghe Gheorghudej. He'll come back later. He's a big communist guy. 1935, the Iron Guard, they changed their name to the Everything for the Country Party.
That sounds,
so just again, very normal.
Yeah.
And then so we're going through here. 1937, the national. So jump in if you got it.
Sure, yeah. In 1934, so very shortly
while this is all happening.
Shortly after the turnover, at 15, Ceaușescu was arrested and imprisoned for a few months for inciting a strike.
Nice.
A year later, he's arrested again for collecting signatures, protesting the trial of striking railway workers.
Yeah.
Again, served a few months, gets out, gets arrested again for being a dangerous communist agitator, quote unquote. And then after serving jail time, he's put on house arrest because he's still a kid at this point. And he's like 16 or 17.
Wow.
And he left home illegally, went to Bucharest again, where he was arrested again for distributing communist and anti-fascist propaganda.
Relatable.
He goes to trial. Yeah, he goes to trial. He makes a big scene like in the middle of the trial, and they end up like banning him from the trial. They give him 6 months, extended to 2 years, and then give him a 2,000 lei fine, which for like a poor peasant is
so like a kid. Yeah, that's
crippling.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and because I don't know if we said this now, Bucharest is the capital of Romania.
Yeah.
So we'll mention that a lot. Yeah. So then we get to 1937. Main things that happen there: the National Liberal Party gets voted out. They were previously in control. They get voted out, and King Carol, he gives the government to a far right coalition. So monarchies, gotta love it.
Not a good look.
And this, one of the first things this fucking far right coalition does is they ban Jews in civil positions and prevent them from buying property. We will be talking. This will not be. This is the first instance I'm mentioning, far from the last, of like some really fucked up structural anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
So the next year,
same year that Ceaușescu got out of jail for
38.
the 4th time. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So King Carol suspends the Constitution because the Iron Guards are still like being rowdy and like it's a shit show. Like Romania is still a shit show at this point. Carol suspends the Constitution. He arrests Codreanu, who's the leader of the Iron Guards, and other Iron Guard leaders. And then Codreanu and these other Iron Guard leaders get shot, quote, while escaping custody. I don't know. I don't give a shit. Fuck them.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then
King Carol did one thing right.
Yeah, exactly. So
everyone gets one.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone gets one good thing.
Yeah.
So about this time is when World War II is brewing in Europe. And you're raising your hand. Sorry.
Oh,
like, yes,
excuse me, what's World War II?
Yeah.
We could do a whole episode.
And in 1939, Ceaușescu is arrested again for, quote, spreading communist slogans, whatever that means. But this is a big one because he ends up getting stuck in jail for what was supposed to be a short term. And then the fascists take over and he's stuck in there for 4 years.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, it was just fucked up 4 years, so it's probably good.
He was in a concentration camp.
Can you imagine 4 years just for spreading communist like propaganda?
When you're like 19?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's 21 at this point.
Well, sure, but like, goddamn.
But yeah, still small.
Okay, so 38, So 1938, yeah. Romania, at this point, they had a treaty with the, so there's this whole history with the Soviet Union. They'd been quibbling over this. So Romania is right on the edge of the Soviet Union at this point, and they'd been fighting over this part in like the northeastern side called, there are these two regions called Bessarabia and northern Bukovina. I don't know. Sorry. If you live there, I apologize. But And so they kept going back and forth on these, like taking them, and it was a whole thing of like Romania. They're like, no, this is our land, and the Soviet Union is like, technically this was like historically part of Russia, and Romania was like, no, that's not true. Fuck you. I don't know. So, but anyway, so Romania is in a treaty with the other Balkan states and France that would oppose Bulgaria and Germany, because like they just see Germany starting to do a lot of shit in Eastern Europe. And they're like, well, we're not really opposed to that. Except that in September of 1938, France and Britain signed the Munich Agreement with Nazi Germany. What is that? The Chamberlain-Hitler Pact. I don't know. That lets Germany annex part of Czechoslovakia. And so the treaty, so France is like, well, we're not going to really do anything. And like, none of these other little Balkan states can do jack shit. So they're like, okay, well, I guess we can't do much. So in 1939, Romania and Germany, they form an economic agreement that lets Germany basically get resources from Romania. And at this point, Germany had already accounted for like half of Romania's imports and exports. So they're obviously already deeply intertwined economically, but they just, Germany annexes Czechoslovakia. Germany moves into Poland soon. World War II starts. So at this point, so Britain and France, they were going to pledge to, quote, ensure the independence of Romania from Germany. This is before the World War had technically started. And the USSR was involved, and they said, we'll join and help prevent Germany from coming to Romania if you let us move troops through Romania so that we can like militarily resist them. And Romania's like, no. They're like, no, you can't put your troops here. So the USSR is like, fuck you, we're not going to help you. So unfortunately, Germany invades Poland, and right afterwards, Premier Armand Călinescu, he gets shot by the Iron Guard. And there's a possibility that this ended up with this was done partly with planning and funding from the Nazis, but we don't know for sure. But as a result of this, in 1940, the new premier is this guy named General Ion Antonescu. And so he takes over the government, and as a result, King Carol is forced to resign by the Iron Guard. They say, like, they give him an ultimatum. They're like, okay, you need to resign. Put your son, Michael, who's 19 at this point, like you put him on the throne, or else I don't know what they promised to do. I'm sure it was something bad. But in any case, Carol resigns, and Michael becomes the king. And Michael's, again, 19 years old. First thing he does, he gives full powers to Antonescu, which immediately goes just like full fascist. They passed like all kinds of anti-Semitic laws and restrictions, not just on Jewish people, but also on like Greek and Armenian people, Romani people, all kinds of ethnic minorities. It's a shit show. The government enables and encourages vigilante violence from the Iron Guards, and they break 64 associates of King Carol out of prison and then murder them in public.
Wow.
They do they start several like pogroms.
Jesus.
Do public murders of Jewish people, and they even assassinate right-wing rivals. Like there was this one guy who ran another fascist party called Nicolae Iorga, and they just fucking killed him too. And so at this point, the government is working closely with Nazi Germany to the point where there are 500,000 Nazi troops in Romania because it's right next to the Soviet Union. They're getting ready to invade the Soviet Union. And then November 23rd of 1940, Romania officially joins the Axis powers, and they become a regular supplier of fuel and food to Nazi troops. So Hitler really liked Antonescu. He liked it as all the things I read that say that he liked him even more than he liked Mussolini, who was the main fascist. You don't hear about Antonescu, but right. This guy was this motherfucker. And then, so then 1941, at this point, the Iron Guards are really like undisciplined, and the Nazis are like, we already got power, knock it off. So the Nazis and the Romanian army start putting down the Iron Guards, which is weird. But
they dissolved them.
Yeah.
I mean, but Hitler did the same thing with the what are they called? The
Sturmabteilung, the storm detachment, the stormtroopers.
Right.
Yeah. Because anyway, but yeah, and then so because when Hitler killed Ernst Röhm and those other guys, it's because they'd already gotten them into power. They didn't need these like paramilitary squads anymore.
Right.
All right. So then June 22nd, 1941, Nazi and Romanian troops invade the Soviet Union. They conquer Bessarabia, conquer Odessa, Sevastopol, and they start moving towards Stalingrad. And so something that I was surprised to learn this, Romania offered more troops to the Nazis than all of Germany's other allies combined.
Weird.
More
That's
Romanian
crazy.
troops were part of like the Axis war effort than all of the Nazis' allies combined.
Jesus.
And they lost more at Stalingrad than the Germans did.
I think that's
I
right.
mean, with that many people, was that like their whole country?
I mean, it was hundreds of thousands. Huge army.
Which is good because then that was less people that needed to get jailed after the kind of
well, it's interesting. Yeah, we'll talk about it. So Germany lets Romania have Bessarabia and Bukovina, and they annex Soviet lands east of the Dniester River, which goes through Moldova and Ukraine. And so this is really starting to rev up all of the nationalists. Like maps were getting passed around suggesting that Romanians had historically occupied like most of southern Russia, which is like ridiculous, but they're like, yeah, this is all our land. Like they were going for Greater Romania, like this huge,
Right.
yeah. Romanian troops, they carried out pogroms, killed, I think it's something like 260,000 Jewish people, rounded up 200,000 Jewish people from Bukovina and Bessarabia, which they had taken back from the Soviet Union and sent them to concentration camps, for Nazi concentration camps. And Romania was supplying the Nazis with oil, grain, industrial products, and then the Nazis didn't really pay for them, so inflation skyrockets. And so people are like, well, Germany kind of sucks. And then, 1943, Stalingrad happens. Lots of Romanian troops. Yeah, and I think like Justin said, more Romanian troops died than
by a
Nazis.
higher percentage. At the very least,
something like that. But anyway, the Soviets win Stalingrad. They start pushing the Nazis and the Romanians back west.
Get the fuck out.
Exactly. And so at this point, the Romanian political opposition, they're in contact with the West, with like the Allies about surrendering so that they can avoid Soviet occupation afterwards. Because they're like, they know what we did. We're gonna get fucked. And so we're in 1943. So in June, there's the PCDR. It's the Romanian Communist Party. Basically, they propose all these parties form a bloc. Like all the non-fascist parties form a bloc to like a coalition to get Romania out of its alliance with Germany. That eventually happened in 1944. It was just slowed down by the two of the big parties, the National Peasants' Party and National Liberals' Party. They slowed down this bloc because they were like, well, we don't want to, they were anti-Soviet. And so they're like, we don't want to give any concessions to the Soviet Union. So it slowed down forming this bloc to get the fascists out of it. Yeah. Liberals. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So 1944, in August, King Michael, he's like, these fascists kind of, so I think at this point he's like, what, 25 or something like that?
Mikey's grown up a bit.
Mikey. He wants to, and so he's getting kind of sick of these fascists running his country.
Same though.
That he put into power. So he starts wanting to do a coup. He wants to do a coup against Antonescu's government. And so a bunch of the political parties, including the communists, have proposed different plans to try to do this. The communists propose a plan where they'll get Antonescu to come to the government offices, offer him a chance to sign an armistice with the Allies and arrest him if he doesn't. And everyone's like, okay, we'll go with this plan. So they use the communist plan. On August 23rd, they summon Antonescu into the government offices and they like basically get him in there. They lock Antonescu in a safe while they sort this out. And Michael takes control of the government, restores the 1923 Constitution, issues a ceasefire immediately. And they let Antonescu out of the safe and imprison him. But should have just left him in there. But
should have just left him in.
So the USSR gave Michael the Order of Victory, which is a I don't remember how many people. It was a one specific award they gave people who did good things in World War II. So anyway, Michael got that.
Well,
I mean,
Mikey.
it was good because August
Good on ya.
31st, Red Army enters Bucharest.
hell yeah.
Yeah, and as a result, the Nazis lose a ton of their troops, fuel, and like grain and
Nice.
stuff because they don't have Romania anymore.
Yep.
Good.
So still 1944, the Nazis and the Axis are getting fucked. September, Romania and the USSR sign an armistice, which says Romania is going to pay reparations. They're going to repeal anti-Jewish laws, which seems like the literal least they could do.
Yeah.
They're going to ban fascist parties again, which is great. They're going to give Bessarabia and North Bukovina back to the Soviet Union. They're going to give back all property that Romanians had confiscated during the war, surrender all German assets in the country. And they put 15 divisions of Romanian troops under the control of the USSR to help liberate Czechoslovakia and Hungary. So this army that was fighting for the Nazis, they surrendered and they're like, okay, well, now I guess we'll fight for the Soviets. And then a ton of there were a lot of Romanian troops that helped. It's weird. It's complicated. This is what I'm saying. It's all complicated and fucked. Okay. And so then at this point, so King Michael, he's like, okay, well, we're going to form a new government. So he appoints General Constantin Sănătescu to be the premier. Now, Sănătescu had been a commander during the war. And if you're like me when I was reading this, you'll be like, wait a second. Wasn't Romania during the war working with the Nazis? Yes. Sănătescu was commanding forces for the Axis. And anyway, King Michael appoints this guy as the premier. So Michael did one good. He got his one good thing out of the way early. And so he forms a government, and it's dominated by the National Liberal Party and the National Peasants Party. Although he does appoint communist Lucreciu Patrascanu, I don't know, he appoints him the Minister of Justice, which is the first time a communist has held office in Romania. So That's exciting. Pretty quickly, Sănătescu is pressured to resign because people are like, hey, you were helping the Nazis.
That's a Nazi.
You know, do you remember that? That was literally last year.
That was 2019, bro. No.
And so then, so in November, King Michael's like, okay, he says to Sănătescu, he's like, okay, listen, we'll say that government didn't count. You form a new one. It'll be fine. Because Sănătescu resigns. Like he resigns after all these protests, and Michael goes to him. He's like, okay, no, bro, this will be different. I promise, bro.
He gives him
different government, bro. It's different coalition. It's not the same coalition, bro. The last one was fascist. This one's
Jesus
good.
Christ, this one's okay.
This one's okay, bro.
Yeah.
I promise, bro. So Sănătescu's like, okay, he comes back and forms another government. And this one collapses in like 3 weeks.
So like the costumey mustache didn't work. They're like, hey, it's still
See
him.
you.
This is Manitescu. It's a different guy, very different guy. No, it was the same guy. But this one only like lasts a couple weeks because people are like, nothing changed. Fuck this.
Different name, same people.
So then King Michael's like, okay, fuck. All right. So
Mikey, come on.
he asks General Nicolae Radescu to form a new government. And so Radescu was not commanding the Nazis because he'd been in prison during the war. Why was he in prison, you may ask? Well, so he had been the leader of a splinter group from the Iron Guard called the Crusade of Romanianism.
Oh.
They splintered from the Iron Guard because the Iron Guard weren't fascist enough.
Ooh,
So,
holy shit.
and this is the guy that Michael asks to be.
God damn it, Michael. What's wrong with you, boy?
He's like, yeah, I mean, this like old, just what a like super fail son. Like he's like 26 years
I'm
old, like just a
disappointed in you,
huge,
son.
Sucks.
huge dipshit. And so Radescu, as you may imagine, immediately starts to do as much anti-communist shit in the government as he
Great.
can, like because of course. Okay, and then so we're about to 1945. So the war is ending. So at this point, the Communist Party in Romania is still trying to get their shit sorted out.
At this point, there's still barely over 1,000 members.
It's really small because it's been illegal for like 30 years.
So still a small boy.
So yeah, I think when they ended up taking power, they were less than 1,000 members in the
Damn.
Communist Party.
Yeah, exactly. But so about this time, they start recruiting like crazy, trying to like bolster their numbers. And so the party is split between. There's two camps, basically. There's the Romanian group, which was the guy, the Minister of Justice I mentioned before, Patrascanu. And this other guy named Gheorghe Gheorghe, he was a former railway worker.
An activist.
Like communist guy, like working class, like organizer.
And he was in
he'd been in prison.
Yeah, he was in the concentration camp with Ceaușescu, which Ceaușescu would later jokingly refer to as Communist University, because there were like, that's where he got his education, basically.
Being in jail with a bunch of communists.
Exactly.
Their shit. Yeah. So that's the one group. And then the other group in the Communist Party is what they referred to as the Muscovites, which was non-ethnic Romanians. So people in Romania who weren't like Romanian. And so the main ones there was this guy, Vasily Luca, who was a Transylvanian Zekler, which is an ethnic group. And then there was also Anna Pauker, who was a Jewish woman born in Moldavia, which is part of, which is a region in. Anyway, they had been in Moscow at the Comintern.
Nice.
Check out our previous episode on Harry Haywood to figure out what they learned there. They were in those, like they were at these schools, and so then they got sent back. And so there's these two groups, and so there's the Romania, like ethnic Romanians, and then there's these. They're from Romania, but they're not like ethnic Romanians, and so.
Wait, so you're telling me that there's two communist groups, one of ethnic Romanians and one of not? Looks a little sketchy, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, and so that's kind of the problem, is because so at this point they were figuring this out. Anna Pauker, she was going to be the party secretary, but she was like, I'm not like ethnically Romanian, and I'm Jewish, so I'm gonna let this other guy.
So she's more like, I don't know what it's like to be.
No. She knows what it's like. She's been in Romania. Right. It's just that she knows that Romanians are so fucking racist.
Yes, there's a lot of ethnic groups in Romania, but Romania was still 91% ethnic Romanian.
Right.
And so as this government's taking power, they can't be like, actually, you're going to be ruled over by these people that aren't ethnic Romanians.
By a Jewish woman who like is a communist and had went to school.
But the Politburo had dramatically more non-Romanians on it than it did Romanians at the conception of the.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so Anna Pauker was going to be the party secretary, but she was like, "It's just I don't want to deal with." She was like, "I personally don't want to deal with all the bullshit. So I'll just be the second in command. We'll let Gheorghe do it."
Yeah, and Ceaușescu was Gheorghe Deje's like buddy, like kind of. Because like he was so young,
it was like
he was like his second son kind of thing, and he would end up as a member of the Central Committee during this whole process, which would come to save his ass in another decade, and we'll talk about that.
And so February 1945, the Communist Party, they organize a rally in front of the Royal Palace calling for Radescu to resign, and then there's street brawls in the next few weeks. People just beating the shit out of each other in the streets. On the 24th of February, somebody shoots from the Interior Ministry building. We don't know who. Somebody shoots at the crowd of protesters and killed 10 of them. And the communists are like, fuck you. You like resign. March 1st he does. He's like, okay, yeah, this doesn't look good. I'm going to resign. And so the new guy is this guy named Petru Groja, who is the leader of a party called the Plowman's Front, which is like a socialist, like not officially communist, but like a socialist peasants party, basically. So he becomes the premier, Groja becomes the premier, and he forms a coalition new government and puts a lot of communists into government positions. So things are starting to look up for the communists. So the government immediately does agrarian reform. They expropriate 1.1 million hectares of farmland, give land to 800,000 peasants.
Ceaușescu was the Minister of Agriculture during this period.
They also greatly expand suffrage. Like women are allowed to vote for the first time. They expand it to a lot more ethnic minorities now. And so and they also form 16 Sovroms, which is these joint stock companies between the Soviets and the Romanians to facilitate reparations because they had to pay a fuck ton of money to the Soviet Union. And so when we were doing our episode on the GDR, we kind of talked about this a little bit in that like the Soviets trying to get reparations from East Germany really fucked up East Germany's economy in the next upcoming decades. Like it's a complicated thing. Like can't really, like I understand why it's coming from. This was kind of the same situation because like the Soviets were just getting so much fucking money and like resources out of Romania. I mean, you could understand why, because Romania again was like the biggest. They were the biggest group outside of the fucking Nazis to do, like, in the biggest enemy outside of the Nazis in World War II. So,
Right.
Anyway, so then May and June, the government executes Antonescu, and Antonescu's foreign minister from a few years back, Mihai Antonescu, no relation as far as I can tell, and then two of the main generals of the previous government. So that's cool. So we get to the Potsdam Conference in 1945, which is basically where the Allies are figuring out, all right, what are we going to do with all this? How are we going to sort out what are we going to do with Europe now? Now that we fucked up the Germans and the Axis and everything. And so the U.S. complained, of course they did. The U.S. complained that the Romanian government wasn't legitimate because they were communists in it.
Right.
And so King Michael asks Grozia to resign, and Grozia's like, no, fuck you. And so Michael, as a result, he's like, okay, well, fine. I'm going to go to my palace and I'm not going to sign any documents or meet with ministers, which was because this is still a constitutional monarchy. Like he technically has to do that. Yeah. And he's like, okay, fine. Well, I'm not going to sign anything.
Wow, what a little brat.
Yeah, exactly. So then the US and the Brits, they say, okay, listen, we'll recognize, and I'm sure this is over after some pressure from Stalin and the Soviets. The US and the Brits, they're like, okay, well, listen, we'll recognize the Romanian government if you put a couple more non-communists in ministerial positions. So Grozia appoints, I think he appoints one guy from the Liberal Party and one guy from the Peasants Party to like minor ministry positions, and the US and Britain, they're like, okay, because I'm sure they were like, who gives a shit? I don't care about Romania at this point. Like we got bigger things to do. And so at this point, Michael's like, okay, well, the US and Britain were my big allies, so that's all I got. So he's like, okay, fine. So he starts playing ball. Okay, so we get to 1946. In November, they have elections, and the communists win. And so a lot of the stuff I was reading was like, this is all like it was faked, and they did, which of course it happens. But I think it has more to do with the fact that they let women and ethnic minorities vote, and that they had been doing like land reform and things like that.
Those votes don't count.
Yeah, exactly. It's whatever. Fuck off. And so at this point, so the National Peasants Party, some of the leaders of the party had left the country, and they were planning to start like a government in exile thing, which they would appeal to the West. They're like, listen, it's not legitimate. Please get the Soviets out. And then so the government arrests the rest of the National Peasants Party leaders, and the party basically goes away. So you don't really hear about them anymore. And so at this point, like Romanian economic production is like half of its pre-war output. And then there was a big drought on top of that. And so they needed foreign aid to feed everybody. Things were fucked up.
Not great.
So then we get to 1947. The West announces the Marshall Plan, which is going to pump like billions of dollars into Europe's economy to remake it in its own image, basically. And this is also when when did they shut down the Comintern? Was that?
That was 43.
43.
Yeah.
But 47, they start the Communist Information Bureau, the Cominform, which was kind of the successor organization. So near the end of 1947, King Michael goes to London for the wedding of his cousin, Queen Elizabeth. All these monarchs are related.
Gross.
It's fucked.
Yeah.
And also he was hoping to get some British support for kicking out the communists while he was there, but it was mainly for Queen Elizabeth's wedding. So the Romanian government's like, okay, well, maybe he'll just take the hint and stay gone. Like, there's no need to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't come back.
But then he did.
Oh, God damn it.
So on December 21st. And so what happens is December 30th, King Michael's in his palace preparing for his New Year's party. Literally, he's preparing for his New Year's party. Christ. And Grozia, the premier, and Gheorghe, who's he's the party secretary.
Yep.
They're like, hey, can we talk with you?
Oh, it sounds like it's going to be good.
He's like, can we talk with you? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And they say, hey, can we talk with you? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. So they go over there, meet with him in his office. King Michael's mom is there because she's like whatever. She has some position. I don't know. And they're like, you need to resign. And so we obviously don't know what happened in that thing. The only thing we know is from what Michael said after the fact. But he was like, they said that they were going to kill thousands of people if I didn't resign. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure, buddy. But anyway, he did resign. They're like, you have 2 weeks. You get all your shit out of here. get out of here.
Get out.
Just go. We don't need you. We're getting rid of this monarchy.
I was thinking they might do like a good cop, bad cop kind of thing. You know,
They might have.
They very well might have, like, because I mean, Gheorghe Dej was like this, like, he was a former railway worker. He was like a big dude.
Yeah.
And Grojo was just like a I don't know. I bet they could have. I bet there was some hijinks.
oh, probably good.
Anyway, but so Michael resigned and they abolished the monarchy.
Nice.
What?
They abolished
the monarchy.
I said launched the monarchy.
Launch
I was
it.
like, what?
Let's
The
launch
monarchy
this shit.
of communism.
That's right.
Yeah.
That really appropriately embodies Romania.
I know, right? It kind of does.
Yikes.
So, all right. So we get to 1948. So the National Assembly on April 13th proclaims the creation of the Romanian People's Republic.
Yeah. At
So
this
now-
point, Ceaușescu is the number 2 in the
in the party.
the
Number
party,
2 boy.
yeah.
And Gheorghe Dej becomes the premier because when was that? I don't remember what year it was. It's around this time. Grojo resigns, and then Gheorghe Dej, who's the party secretary, and he becomes the premier. And then they announce we're a People's Republic. We're doing socialism, everybody. So they make plans. They're going to nationalize the banks and most of the country's industry, mining, transportation. And so within 3 years, the state controlled 90% of Romanian industry.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
So also in 1948, Yugoslavia gets expelled from the Common Forum for doing some. We'll do a future episode at some point. Like they were just Tito is on some nationalist shit.
Tito was on something.
Which is so it's funny because so Romania took in like anti-Tito Yugoslavs, and Belgrade in Serbia, or well, Yugoslavia, now Serbia. Belgrade had been the seat of the Common Forum, but they were like, the Common Forum kicked Yugoslavia out, so like we're gonna move it to Bucharest. So Bucharest is the head of the Common Forum now. So 1949. Oh yeah, so they kick out what they call national deviationists. They're like people. So Yugoslavia's main problem was that they're too nationalist, and we're trying to be like a world communist thing here, which is funny for Romania because these motherfuckers were like.
That's what Romania was saying?
That was the excuse they gave to purge a lot of their party, because like we had said, they had a really small party, and they'd spent like they'd been just recruiting all kinds of people, and then they were like, okay, well, we're in charge now. We need to like kind of clean house a little bit because we got there's a lot of like weird people that we don't want in our party right now. And so that was the main thing they used, was like kick out the national deviationists. So then 1949, they do a lot of agricultural collectivization.
Yeah.
Start building a lot of collective
I
farms.
misspoke earlier. This is when Ceaușescu was appointed Department
Of agriculture?
of Agriculture
Yeah.
head.
So then presumably some things happened in 1950, but I don't have any of them. And then 1951.
1950, he was appointed deputy minister.
Okay. So in 1951.
Deputy defense minister. Sorry.
All right. So in 1951, you've got they announced their first 5-year plan. 57% of all investment in the country is going to go to industry, and 87% of industrial investment is going to go to heavy industry. And so at this point, the economy is not doing great for a number of reasons. One of them is they have to give a ton of money and resources to the Soviet Union because they did bad stuff in the war. And then also the agricultural collectivization wasn't great. I don't know the details of it. It didn't seem like it was as efficient as perhaps you would want it to be, but it seems like it's a tough thing to collectivize your agriculture.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
I'm not going to be.
struggled with it for sure.
I'm not going to cast aspersions. Was it take the log out of your own eye before you take the
There you
speck
go.
out of your brother's?
Thanks, Jesus.
Whoa. Jesus.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, far be it from me in America to talk shit about someone else collectivizing agriculture. Okay. So 1950. Oh, I misspoke earlier. So in 1952, Grojo resigns, and Gheorghe Dej becomes the premier. And also in 1952, Anna Pauker and the other guy, Luca, they lose their positions in the party because it's complicated. It's really complicated. I was talking with the folks at Proles the Mignon, and I think we could do a whole episode on Anna Pauker because she was the first Jewish woman to be in a position like a government position anywhere in the world.
Whoa, that's cool.
In the modern world. So, and she's a really interesting figure, but there was a lot of internal political stuff that I would need to do a little more research on to speak authoritatively on. So anyway, they just lost their positions. It's complicated. They didn't get like killed or anything. So I think Luca went to prison, but anyway. So then 1953, Joseph Stalin ascends to heaven.
Oh,
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, Joseph Stalin dies. And so as a result, Justin just crossed himself. And so Gheorghedesh's government, they slow down the industrialization process, and they shift to more consumer goods, which is always awesome. And then they dissolve the Sovroms, the joint stock companies. And those are the main things. And so basically so Justin will fill this more in, but I have to skip over the rest of the 1950s just for time, because we could talk about this forever.
Yeah,
but like,
I don't know a lot about it.
I mean, Gheorghedesh sounds
really
like
study
he's an
his
interesting figure. But we're trying to talk about Ceaușescu because that's
Sure.
the one everyone knows about.
Right.
But basically, in his time, Gheorghedesh, he turned the Romanian Communist Party from this like tiny little splintered organization to this like cohesive autonomous organization surrounding the state. But he also started on this continued this like hyper nationalist thing that Ceaușescu definitely continued. And one other cool thing that happened in the 50s is that in 1957, the Romanian government legalized abortion and basically had the most like progressive policy on abortion anywhere in Europe.
Damn.
So,
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, over to you, big boy.
Well, my story picks up around 1964, and this is where the super like hyper nationalist policies really start to kick in for Romania, and this is a year before Gheorghe dies. But what happened was, and I'm assuming it's probably a result of Romania's desire to become independent. And so the Soviet Union wants them to maintain the primarily agricultural and consumer goods economy. And Gheorghe and the Romanian Workers' Party is what it was called at this point, decide that they're actually going to focus on heavy industry, and they don't want to do like consumer goods and agriculture. So they focus on that, which pisses off, at this point it would still be Khrushchev. And so they start to like kind of butt heads with the Soviet Union. And at the same time, they remove the requirement for elementary school kids to learn Russian as a required course. The building and street names they take down. They're no longer in Russian and Romanian. They just put them in Romanian. And the like native languages in the minority areas.
Probably mostly Romanian though.
Yeah. They had previously a Soviet Friendship Month, which was changed.
Which sounds very wholesome.
It's very wholesome. Which was changed to 10 days of Soviet culture.
Damn.
And these are
big moves.
These are big moves, and they're wildly popular with the Romanian population.
Because if we know anything about the Romanians, they don't like being told what to do.
Right.
No, and on top of that, like you've said, they've been paying millions of dollars worth
they're like
of.
really
You
salty.
get it. You get it.
Yeah.
Like, it's. Yeah.
And they begin to allow the reintroduction of some kind of sketchy Romanian historical figures into discourse in books. They wouldn't rehabilitate them to the sense at this point anyway that you would think of, but they were previously banned from like discussion. You weren't allowed to talk about these people. But now they are, allowed to. And maybe most importantly, they stopped jamming Radio Free Europe and Voice of America. They allow Western plays, books, exhibitions, lectures into the country.
You hate to see it.
Not the best.
You hate to see it.
It's not great. Not great, Bob.
Not my favorite.
Which of course just pisses off the Soviet Union.
Well, right.
Sure.
I mean, yeah. Like, so this is. Earlier, I mentioned Vlad the Impaler. This is one of those. He's one of those figures where. So if you know anything about Vlad the Impaler, he was just like a fucking warlord who like massacred thousands of people like in very horrific ways.
Yep.
And he was a like Romanian dude. And so this is at the point where they're like, like maybe not great, but like, what, he was a strong Romanian man. He was a strong Romanian man.
Guy. Yeah.
And so like
He was Romanian. Oh, okay, just add him to the list.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? So anyway.
Yeah.
It's not great.
That's like, I'm trying to think. That would be like reviving, like, say, like
Andrew
40 years
Jackson.
in the future. Huh? Yeah, I was gonna say like John Wayne Gacy. Like,
Listen, he was a serial killer.
He killed and raped a bunch of boys,
but he was a good family man.
he was American. He
was a good American. He went to he served in Vietnam. I don't know if he did, but
he was a business owner. Okay,
he was a small business owner.
Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucked up.
And this is the same time as the Sino-Soviet split.
Yeah.
And so
it's a rough time.
there is
for all of us.
Yeah, there was I think a more motivation for Romania to be able to make these moves because they weren't betraying communism. They were betraying the chauvinistic Soviet Union.
Revisionist Soviet Union.
Right, exactly.
They're like, everyone's doing it. Let's be cool too.
So Mao did it. We can do it.
1965, Yorgu Dej dies of lung cancer.
He was also just old as fuck. So
he was an old guy. And in March of 1965, Ceaușescu is elected as first secretary of the party, and Chivu Stoica is elected, I don't know if I pronounced that right, I'm sorry, president of state. And so at this point, they have two different positions. Now, Ceaușescu, his first big moves is to increase party control because he, is this firm believer in communism, and democratization, which is one of the things that he pushes throughout his life. There's a period during which he is very heavily, investing in that. And there's a period of his life where he maybe just talks about it more than he actually enforces it. But yeah, so one of the things that they did was only one full-time party position can be held by a single person. And so he believes that, if you're going to dedicate your life to the party, you need to focus on the position that you're working. You can't hold like 2 or 3 different positions. And the Politburo and CC secretaries will now report to the CC as a whole. So they're accountable to the entire body versus, the kind of handing down decisions. They changed the name from the Romanian People's Republic to the Romanian Socialist Republic, and the Romanian Workers' Party to the Romanian Communist Party. In 1966, Romania had, we talked about earlier, one of the most relaxed abortion policies in Europe. But with, and with the difficulty of contraceptive availability, abortion is the number one family planning method.
Shit.
Which and part of it was just because for whatever reason, contraceptives were hard to come by. I don't know if it's because they didn't import a lot or they didn't make them or
produced
what.
in the West, maybe.
I don't know why, but the main,
they didn't get them.
This is the thing, the main way to the main method of birth control is just have an abortion.
And in Romania at the time, they have extremely low birth rates and fertility rates.
Well, because starting in the late 50s, when they legalized abortion and women were
working
and being fully more fully integrated into the economy and society, as generally tends to happen in anywhere when women have access to birth control and are able to have jobs, they choose to have fewer children.
Right.
That just happens.
No, dog. No.
But the population starts to dip and they're like, yikes. So they make abortion illegal again.
It's very bad.
Yeah, it's not great.
So it's Decree 770, I believe is what it was called. And
so for women over, abortions are still legal for women over 45, women with 4 or more children, and women who would be at medical risk if they were going to carry to term, and victims of rape.
Well, that's still better than
It's still
better than a lot of American states abortion laws, which is
it wasn't great, but instead of making contraceptives easier to get, it just went the opposite direction. It's so weird.
Yeah, it was a weird.
And
it
also created this huge problem with an explosion in orphanages because all these people are forced to have children that they don't want. and then they're like, I can't handle this.
Right. And so they would drop their kid off at a state orphanage.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
there was like a huge boom in like Romanian
There
orphanages.
was the huge boom that sounded like an economic
Like
thing.
if you're
about to say there was a
investing,
huge-
go invest in Romanian.
But I mean, we joke, but in the
Jesus
90s,
Christ.
after the
Yeah.
communist collapse, there was a whole thing of like Romanian orphanages fucking like doing just like really sketchy deals, basically selling kids to Western
Right.
adoption agencies.
Really
because they had
sketchy.
so many fucking kids.
Yeah.
Right.
It was bad. It was bad.
And they also incentivized. So if you had more than 5 or more children, you were given
Jesus.
like basically elite economic benefits. Like, you know,
your social credit score was huge.
Yeah, exactly. And if you got 10 children, you got like
You get
If you were the Duggars,
you
then-
fill your punch card and they give you another one for free.
they had like a title for them. It was like
Commissar of
Eternal
children.
Mother or something
I don't
ridiculous.
remember what it is,
Mother?
but yeah.
Eternal Mother.
No,
It's
it was
something.
something-
It's something.
It was something weird.
ridiculous.
It was
So
really weird
fucking
and
weird.
not good.
Not great.
It was not great.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, once again, you hate to see it.
Yep.
You hate to see it.
1967. So they're getting almost no support from the USSR, and they begin to, I'm assuming out of necessity, but they begin to start taking some kind of yikes stances on international issues, such as support of Israel.
Yeah, they were the only Warsaw Pact country to
Ooh.
recognize the state of Israel and to recognize the state of the Federal Republic of Germany, which is also known as West Germany.
West Germany, yep.
Oof.
And these moves, again, are popular within Romania because it creates this idea of independence. Like they are...
We're sticking to the Soviets.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
we're communists, but also we're independent and all this kind of
They're
shit.
basically like a rowdy teenage boy. Like, Dad, you're not going to tell me, you know.
Yep. You're
not my real dad.
They
Aw.
redivide the country into counties, which is what they had pre-war, versus the regions or oblasts, which would happened after the Soviet came in and liberated
Should have mentioned that.
Romania.
Yeah.
And as a result, they take the opportunity to restructure these counties to reflect like the closest major town, which was kind of promoted as the cultural and industrial center of that county, to give people like something to be proud of, like somewhere to go, so that everybody has access to something like that within their own county. In the process of this, the Hungarian majority Magyar Mureș, autonomous region
Wow, that was beautiful.
was the Romanian language is wild.
There's a lot of marks all over the place.
There's
Just
marks
like
everywhere.
Little like lines and dots. It's,
Yeah.
it's
Accent
a lot.
marks?
Letters you think you
Yes.
recognize, but they don't sound anything like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yep.
Yes, they are accent marks.
There's little lines.
Little lines and
there's-
dots and
They got little
Squiggles and
squigglies
stuff.
coming off
Squiggles, yeah.
letters. So the Hungarian majority autonomous region was eliminated in the process of this. But minority groups were promised protection of native languages and even more, quote unquote, even more participation in civic affairs. And the Hungarian majority areas were divided into 2 counties, equal in population and economic potential to the, other counties in the country. And at this point, the 1965, so only 2 years later, law barring the holding of 2 positions is reversed to where one person can hold,
as many as they want.
well,
As many as they get
that's
elected
not
to.
actually true.
No,
it
I'm being flippant.
it was called parallelism. And so
Oh,
any
okay.
redundant positions were consolidated into a single position. So if there's a position in the party and a position in the state that both serve the
Right.
same function, they just consolidate it into one position. But what do you know? The general secretary of the RCP and the president of Romania become the same person.
Turns out. Whoops.
And that person is Nicolae Ceaușescu.
A little guy called Nicolae Ceaușescu.
This same restructuring opens 20 new positions, which were appointed by Ceaușescu, thus increasing his support within the party and the state. Now, another disclaimer, I don't believe in a cult of personality. I don't believe that people are that stupid or blind or mindless that they can be led into complete oblivion. But
Well, look at how they talk about Obama.
I mean, I look at Trump, right? Because if anybody's got a what you would call a cult of
Right.
personality, it would be Trump. But these people know what they're getting into. They know what he is.
Well, and the thing is, they just think
accept
that
him
he's
for
on
it.
their side.
Right.
Like, he's a crook, but he's a
Right.
crook for me.
He's
Exactly.
a crook for me.
I
crook in
think
my
that's
art.
what people think Trump is like. Yeah.
Yikes.
And so if there's any communist leader that you can say has a cult of personality, it was probably Ceaușescu. He worked very hard, I think, to promote his image in the country as like the savior of the Romanian people.
Well, and he also
And
kind
he-
of...
And in a lot of ways he did a lot of great
Yeah.
things for Romania.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he also portrayed himself as, like, he particularly is, like, one of the most intelligent, like,
Right.
human beings alive.
He portrayed himself like that.
Like,
He
Well,
played
everybody
a
else
part.
did too. I mean,
Well,
he was
right.
very wildly popular.
well, no, I mean, he was popular, but it's like you said. I don't know. Like, I don't
Right.
think it's
Yeah,
complicated. This
complicated.
shit sucks.
This shit
I
sucks.
hated researching this.
Yes.
That was not fun.
I am so glad to be
I'm
done
glad
with this episode.
Yeah,
not done
for
yet.
real. Well, I mean, we're almost done.
Just to get like
no, but to be
I've
here and know
been-
that after
I've been
when I
in-
drive away, I don't
Yeah.
have to deal with
I've
this
been in
shit.
Ceaușescu's world for like 4 months now, and I'm just glad
But-
to be out of it.
But that's interesting. Was he like narcissistic or something?
I
Did he
don't
come
know.
across
I
as
So
that?
don't
I've
know.
watched a lot of interviews with him and speeches by him, and I don't get that impression. But people can fake it, right? And so you
Right.
don't know what's real and what's
True.
not, which is why I'm not going to talk about
Yeah.
the cult of personality because
Right.
I don't have any proof that it exists aside from just the degrees to which he was like revered.
When do we get to Elena? I don't remember.
Well, she really comes on the scene in the 70s, but
That's right. Okay, so we're still getting there.
yep. So and I'm not gonna talk about that as much as I want to because I think a lot
It's-
of the dialogue around it is like sexist. I think it really is. It comes down to like, well, the only way a woman can hold any power
Yes.
position is because she's the husband of, it was, pushed there by Ceaușescu. And maybe that's true. And maybe it's not. And I don't know.
I think.
I'm not
I
really
mean,
gonna
I
talk
think it's
about it
probably a
much.
combination because he also did appoint like 30 of his cousins and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
his
yeah.
kids to be.
All right. So 1968, Dubček's reforms in Czechoslovakia receive severe condemnation from the Soviet Union as well as
like
the
liberal
other
shit.
bloc states. And at this point, Ceaușescu, maybe because he's trying to drum up financial support from other countries, maybe because he loves the positive response he gets from the Romanian people when he fights the Soviet Union, but he goes hard against the Soviet Union and in support of Dubček.
Yeah.
And so he gives his most famous speech in front of about 100,000 people in Bucharest, where he basically says, nobody, has any right to tell another Marxist-Leninist state how they're going to apply Marxism-Leninism to their country, and blah blah blah.
And just for the record, I would not call Czechoslovakia 1968 Marxist-Leninist.
No,
Come on,
but Ceaușescu does.
Come on, buddy.
Yeah,
Ceaușescu, what are you doing, bro? Rethink this.
Yep. The same year, Foreign Secretary Niculescu Mizil goes to an international meeting of communist parties, and he makes a speech about how unanimity is necessary in international matters, since democratic centralism should not apply to government relations. Because at the time, the USSR is like, and the rest of the bloc states are like, why aren't you in support of our position against Czechoslovakia?
Right.
The Syrian Communist Party delegate blasts Niculescu, and the Romanian Communist Party withdraws from the meeting. From this point on,
Yikes.
the RCP refuses to go to any international conferences unless there's an agreement that, quote, fraternal parties will not be attacked or criticized, end quote. So
Big
they're like,
teenage
you were mean
hours.
to me.
We're not coming back unless you're noise.
and at the same time, they also you may be about to mention this. They officially refused to permit any Warsaw Pact military maneuvers on Romanian territory.
Yep. And they create people's armies, basically, which, are like local militias, because I imagine they're at least moderately scared about the Soviet Union invading their country, in the same way that they would liberate Czechoslovakia. Romania is the only country in the Warsaw Treaty Organization not to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty presented by the U.S. and USSR. later that same month, the
Not
pact.
that they ever had any they were never
Right,
anywhere near
right.
having any
It's
fucking
a
nukes.
political move.
No, I
right?
know it is. I'm just, it's dumb. It's just dumb.
But the
we
Warsaw
can't use
Pact.
nuclear weapons.
Yep. The Warsaw Treaty Organization meets in Dresden to discuss like the events in Czechoslovakia, and Ceaușescu was not invited.
Oh, Jesus.
So he's the only
can't come to my
party. Around the same time, he meets with Dubček and Tito like a bunch of different times. He increases trade with both of those countries by 10%.
Oh, Jesus.
So again, just kind of a slight to
The Soviets.
Throwing
the
shade.
Soviets,
Yeah.
And one of the most important things that happens in 1968 was at the Congress, the results of an investigation which started in 1965 is concluded and presented in front of the Congress, which said that Lucreciu Petronescu, who you talked about earlier,
Yeah, back in the 40s.
who was executed in 1954 as a Western spy.
Oh, fuck.
And-
Sorry, I forgot. He did get killed later.
Yeah, and
Whoops.
Stefan Forres, who was executed as a member, accused as a member of Antonescu's secret police. This report comes back and says, actually, these guys were innocent. And this murder of esteemed party members pisses off basically the majority of the Central Committee, and they have to lay the blame at the feet of somebody.
Mhm.
And at the time, the Politburo was the ones making the decisions. And so Gheorghe Dej, Georgescu, Anna Pauker, Luca, Dradici, Stoica, Benares, and Constantinescu are all just like shamed, basically.
All the major communists in the 30s and 40s before our boy here.
Yes, and at this point, most of them are not holding positions.
They're
anymore.
they're either not holding positions or they're
Holding minor
dead.
positions. Yeah, and Dradici is the oldest Communist Party member in the group, and probably like the number one competitor, I guess you'd say, for power. And he's dismissed, and this kind of again secures Ceausescu's position. Now the Congress is a large body, so it's not like, again, I think a lot of this discussion dialogue can make it seem like it's a handful of people
Right.
but it's a large Congress that supports Ceausescu unequivocally.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is I think we were talking about this in a previous episode, is like there's this weird interaction between, like, you've got a very charismatic like lead figure. We were talking about this with like Khrushchev. Like Khrushchev couldn't do all the revisionism on his own. He needed the support of,
Right.
I mean, he also like limited some of the democratic stuff, but he still needed the support of the Politburo and like the Supreme Soviet and stuff. And so this is another situation where it's not just Ceausescu himself, like, I decree this happens. Like it's happening, like votes are happening.
Right.
Like they're making official laws and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not him just handing down orders.
Yeah.
Later the same year, the intervention in Czechoslovakia happens. Ceausescu denounces it publicly and very loudly. The public loves it. They create workers' councils for Hungarians, Germans, and Serbs around the same time, as well as other nationality groups to, quote, stimulate scientific, artistic, and literary production among cohabiting nationalities in their mother tongue, end quote. So around this time, at least he's paying lip service to minority groups, and they have genuine rights. In 1969, Ceausescu is reelected. And by the end of 1969, a large majority of people in the governmental positions were people who started serving after Gheorghe Dej's death. And so all they know is Ceausescu. In 1970, one of like kind of the catalyst, there's a few catalyst moments in this history. 1970, there's massive flooding in Romania that wipes out a ton of their crops, really kind of puts them up shit creek, on top of the economic problems that they're already having, that they're just now starting to kind of turn around. And the U.S. ends up contributing more in aid than the USSR.
Yikes.
And so as a result, this kind of pushes Ceausescu even further onto the other side of the Sino-Soviet split. He visits the U.S. for the first time. And in 1971, he tours China and the DPRK. And he's really kind of struck by the effect of the Cultural Revolution in China and Juche in the DPRK. And I am guessing he's like, wow, this is a great way to really rally a national, group behind your cause. So he brings that mentality back to Romania. But when you're not a colonized nation, it's just reactionary.
Then it just ends up being like really cringy and reactionary.
So, and I believe that Ceaușescu was a communist. I believe he believed in what he said. He literally died for it. He could have fled. He could have left. He could have gone to this, Soviet Union or whatever and escaped with his life. But he, chose to stay in Romania and basically get executed. But we'll get there. So at this time, and it's kind of a minor thing at this point, but it snowballs. Hungary's coverage of Ceausescu's trip to China and the DPRK is extremely negative because they're on the other side of the Sino-Soviet split. And the Romanian press lashes back and says that Hungary should refrain from harmful criticisms.
So listen, if you can't say anything nice.
But Hungary is part of the reason that Romania gets overthrown. So that's why it's important.
It's not like Hungary was doing great at this point anyway.
1971 is also the year that Elena Ceaușescu, who was, if there's anything sweet about this story, it's probably their marriage, because they
did seem to genuinely like each other.
Genuinely
and
love each
other. So.
There was no accusations of any extramarital anything. They married in 1945, I think. And, they stayed married through this whole thing until they died together, next to each other.
They had five children?
The cover of that book is he's murked on the cover.
I hate literally his dead body.
So
it's
gross.
Whoa.
And what did they have? What was it? 5 kids?
I don't remember the number of children they had.
And they all had jobs in the government.
Yep.
Weird.
And in 1972, 22 new member positions are created in the Central Committee to increase democratization, and Elena is elected to one of them. So now she holds a position within the CC and becomes an actual political figure.
Here's where the shit starts to get crazy.
Yeah. So,
give it to me.
Not spicy in a good way.
Oh, damn it.
Anti-spicy.
It's like ranch.
Bad.
Like ranch.
Like Tabasco.
Wait, no, Tabasco is good. I'm
Is it?
pro
Are
Tabasco.
we having,
It's just spicy,
are we
it's
having
bad
hot
spicy.
sauce discourse now?
I love
no.
Okay, Cholula, Tabasco.
Cholula is good.
Tapatio.
Tabasco's not that great.
Tapatio's
Tapatio's
good.
also good.
I like Tapatio.
Tabasco's okay.
I like the green.
It's
I like
just
the green
hot. It just tastes like
Tabasco.
hot. It doesn't have a flavor.
Hot is good.
Well, sometimes you
Anyways.
gotta add some heat to your.
Okay, anyway.
The point is, it's ranch.
Anyway, ranch. Yes.
All right. So I think it was around 1972. Same thing. They're now reeling economically. They are no longer a part of the common form, or they have the least amount of money coming in through the communist countries. They're struggling economically, and they appeal to the IMF, sponsor of the show.
Yeah, our sponsors. Yeah, they apply in 1972, and then they get accepted.
And they get accepted. They get a lot of help. Nixon comes to Romania, and he's like, I love Romania. It's great here. And he does his I love Romania in Romanian, which is terrible and cringy.
Sounds like Justin.
Well, and then is this when he gets knighted by the Queen?
No,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
By the Queen?
The Queen of England?
That. No, I missed
Oh,
that.
Dude,
fuck,
he got knighted by the Queen of England.
That's like
Wow.
nuclear.
I gotta find the date. Hold on.
That's like, oof.
I missed that.
No.
I know
This was 78. Yeah.
okay. So in 1974, the Grand National Assembly creates a brand new position for Ceaușescu, the president of Romania. So now he is the supreme leader.
He's the dude.
Yep.
He's the
And
guy.
It's this really weird ceremony. They put a sash on him, and he gets a scepter, and it's very
Hey.
I didn't see this.
he's he looks almost uncomfortable doing it. So I don't want
Is
to
it like a coronation almost?
Yes.
Oh geez.
and so I don't want to say that he orchestrated it himself because he looks pretty uncomfortable when it's happening, but like legitimately he's up on stage with this big sash and a fucking scepter.
It might have been
as,
something
It's
he
a
like,
communist scepter. It's okay.
in his mind, he was like, this will be cool. And then when it happens, he's like, oh,
Wow, this actually looks really tacky.
It's probably some ethnic Romanian shit.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. King Michael, by the way, at this point has been living in Switzerland the whole time.
he's like, bye.
Well, he's like, well, if they ever get overthrown, I'm gonna go check it out.
Jesus.
We'll check in with him later near
we'll
the
see
end
how
of the
our
story.
friend's doing.
So now he's party secretary, he's head of state, and he's also president of Romania, whatever
Wow,
that is.
That's a lot of things.
Yep. He also then in 1976 is placed in charge of the Commission on Ideology. So he now
Wow, very interesting.
dictates like whatever the
Got the ideas.
narrative. Yeah.
Got the-
Whatever the narrative is. He starts to implement some plans which, like communism, look good on paper, but really in practice don't work.
Dead. Canceled.
So, like, for example, he implements a plan where people are required to work for 2 years before entering into the university because he says, like, people need to be, like, work. They need to work. We don't want just like a country of intellectuals. And that sounds great, but it creates these weird situations with ethnic minority groups where they are forced to leave their ethnic majority areas, go to the cities where the colleges are. And this is around the same age where most people are meeting their partners. And they are now in majority Romanian areas. And so the delusion of like minority bloodlines, and so a lot of ethnic minority
just assimilate.
groups,
Right.
start being like, what the fuck? And so it's not like I don't think it was intentional, and it's not like a slight, like an overt, like we hate the Hungarians or
Right.
whatever. But it has that effect on the minority groups because they're like, what the fuck?
byproduct,
Like,
yeah.
where's my opportunity to like continue to be among my people?
Right.
You're trying to erase us basically.
Me coming to America. No,
It's not great.
At this point, which is, I think is kind of cool. They, all the books I read, of course, projected it as a negative thing, but state TV follows him around and he would do these tours of like every, like rural areas, small towns, cities, everything. And he would ask the workers like, what's going on? Like, what can we do out here? And if there was a problem, he would like petition the local leader, like Communist Party leader, and be like, you need to fix this shit. Then that gets implemented into a further plan where they create commissions. And he has this like speech that he gives that I listened to. And I'm not going to remember it word for word, but it was something along the lines of,
damn it, Justin.
he goes,
We'll just play it. It'll be in Romanian.
We're
You won't
going
get a
to
word.
create a commission to take workers' grievances and address them and figure out ways to fix them. And if that's not effective, we'll create a commission to address the commission. And he says like, and if there will create commission after commission after commission.
Until we figure out what's going on.
Just keep
Until
making
we solve
commissions.
it.
Hey, you.
Oh,
But they
man.
actually did it. And there were literally hundreds of thousands of letters that these groups would take in that they would then read and address and try to turn around.
Listen to the
That was a
people.
good thing.
Yeah.
That was a good thing that happened. Oh, what year was that?
This was, I think it was like 76, 77.
So I mentioned back in 74, like I mentioned before, Ceaușescu, he appointed 3 of his brothers, his son, and his brother-in-law into government positions, which
Family business.
it's a family business. You're in the family.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And he, throughout this like period, he keeps like in the 70s, he starts talking about what he calls national equality, which is like, we are all Romanians, and the minority groups don't
Like,
appreciate
wait a
that.
second.
Yeah. They're like, what the fuck? Hungary's living standards had increased significantly, probably because they were on the good side of the USSR, and ethnic Hungarians in Romania are looking at Hungary and being like,
Why
what
can't
the
we do
fuck?
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Can we go
And
back?
so that creates like another like feeling of frustration towards Ceaușescu and but I mean, yeah, Hungarians are 5% of the
Right, so
population.
there's not a ton they can do.
There's not a lot they can do. Yeah. In 1977, a huge earthquake brings like economic dislocation to Bucharest. So it actually destroys a lot of the city itself, creating, of course, more financial problems. In 1976 to 1980 5-year plan, they are now $10 billion in debt to the IMF.
Which happens when you get money from the West.
Yep.
Eventually, they're going to start wanting it back.
Yeah.
And so their 5-year plan, their 76 to 85-year plan is basically austerity measures because they're trying to pay back the money to the West.
Yeah.
And as a result, 35,000 miners striked, and in one of the like primary members, Hungarian members of the Congress ends up quitting the RCP in protest, and he does it publicly, which is,
not great.
Not great, Bob. And which he later reveals, at the time he just, he resigns because he says that he's frustrated the way things are going. Later on, he says it's because of the way that they were treating the Hungarian minority groups.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it may have been, but it's just but it's one of those things is like, you talk 20 years later, like, oh no, it's totally because
it's totally because of this.
I mean, there was probably enough reason to resign just because of all the horse shit that's going on. But anyway.
Now we're 1979. And several thousand Bucharest workers attempt to form a separate union, so a union outside of the party.
Yeah.
Which of course is not going to happen. And I also watched this speech, which was pretty like chilling, I guess you'd say. But in 1979 at the 12th Congress, 84-year-old Constantine Parvalescu, again, many apologies, who was a founding member of the RCP, the oldest in the group for sure, takes to the floor and criticizes Ceaușescu for putting his personal interests over those of the country and the Congress, for passing over the country's problems while devoting its energies to re-electing Ceaușescu. And he does this on the floor, and he's like, "Oh shit. Give me the mic or whatever." And,
damn.
And they're like, "No, you weren't on the they're like, you're not on the docket. You weren't on the docket."
You're not on the
And Ceaușescu's like, "No, let him speak. Let him speak." So he lets him speak.
Let him speak. Fuck you, man.
And the Congress loses their mind. They're like, "Get the fuck out of here!" They're like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And then they start chanting, "Re-elect Ceaușescu! Re-elect Ceaușescu!"
Holy shit! Sorry, Gramps, you tried.
And his credentials as a delegate are revoked, and Ceaușescu is reelected unanimously. So he would have been the only one that voted against him.
Oh my god!
Yep.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just this place was wild. I don't know what to say about Romania. This place is weird.
Now, as we get into the 80s, things start to get really fucked.
Yeah, the 80s are just. It's just like it literally starts bad and ends terribly.
Yes. Yep. It never gets good and it ends terribly.
And it's still not in 2019.
It's still not great.
2020.
So there's a few things that happen in the early 80s that are very
New Year, New Romania.
Yes, please. There's a few things that happen in the early 80s that are really kind of transformative. One of the big ones is they commission the building of this new government building, which is massive.
It is the third largest building in the world, or a government building, I think specifically. It's the heaviest building in the world.
Yeah.
The thickest.
If you could pick it up and weigh it, it would weigh the most of any building in the entire world.
It's massive.
I looked at pictures. It's
impressive.
It's pretty. It's very impressive.
But
it's a little too big.
But the economy is in the shitter.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're spending billions of dollars building this new government building. Yeah. And people are not. This is when I don't want to, because he was never, so there was no point at which he was unpopular. So I don't want to say he became unpopular.
He became less popular.
This is when the people start to turn against him. Some of the people start to turn against him. In the early 80s, the other thing that happens is the U.S., Reagan becomes president, and the U.S. starts eyeing Eastern Europe, and they're like, wait a minute, I think we can do this, right? And they're really focused. Their main focus is the GDR, so like East Germany. Mm-hmm. And their main goal is to get East Germany back into the bloc so that they have, back into the Western bloc, so that they have a way to basically be bordered against the Soviet Union and all of the Eastern Bloc countries.
Too late, motherfucker.
Yep. So as a result, the U.S. decides to stop giving any aid or money to Romania.
Yeah.
And so now Romania is $10 billion in debt to the West, and they can't get any extensions on any of their loans. They can't get any more money from, from any of the Western countries.
Well, yeah, like they have no friends at this point.
Right.
Aww.
And, yep.
Well, listen, you start enough drama, like eventually.
What's the T, sis? Well, here's the T.
And in, around this time, so previously they had invested heavier in ethnic minority areas in order to basically like help them catch up to like the status of, the ethnic Romanians. But as they're going through these austerity measures, they cut the ethnic area funding down to the normal, which is, so it's not like they like try to persecute them, but they drop it to the normal. But in doing so, they put them at a disadvantage.
Right.
And so the Hungarian minorities especially really take offense to this, right? In 1979, so just, a year before, the petroleum market gets hit hard, and Romania was actually had a pretty good deal with the Shah of Iran. And so when the, Ayatollah Khomeini comes to power, they're fucked out of the petroleum. And so they're forced to use only the oil that is in Romania, which they have a decent amount of oil, but they can't, but it's their number one export, right? And so that their main profit is kind of undercut. There's drought in 1979 on top of the earthquake.
They had to start food rationing for the first time since like the fucking war.
Yeah.
Damn.
They start exporting consumer goods. So the goods that were like kind of improving the lifestyles of these Romanian people is now being exported for money. Yikes. They are reducing imports, so they're not taking in as much because they can't afford to. In between 1981 and 1982, food prices tripled.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So people can no longer, afford to eat decent food.
Yeah.
Gasoline becomes rationed. As we get to because this is when I stopped taking notes, because I basically watched a bunch of speeches to get through this. As we get to the mid to late 80s, our good buddy Young Gorby becomes the premier of the Soviet Union, and
this young new guy has some bold ideas for the Soviet Union.
He cuts funding to all of the bloc's countries, and he starts talking publicly, urging them to implement glasnost and perestroika in their own countries. And Ceaușescu is like, fuck you. So he goes to the Warsaw Treaty Organization, and he gives this speech where he basically like flames Gorby and revisionism. And he says, some people in this room would have us re-implement capitalism. He said, we have hundreds of years of history that tells us what capitalism does. And he said, we will have capitalist restoration in Romania when pigs fly. And this is 1988, I think, 1989. And almost prophetically, he says, because like people start cheering some people start cheering in the crowd. And he said, hold your applause, comrades. He said, we're making leaps and bounds in genetic engineering, and we may someday see pigs fly. And
Who said that? Who said that?
Holy
Ceaușescu.
shit. Holy fuck.
Yikes.
He had a good, like a sense of humor that he liked to play. He was very charismatic.
Oh my God.
And and so then at this point, the U.S., so there's a number of kind of resistance movements that have by this point picked up. One of the big ones is the Hungarian group. The other one was the Christians. Ceaușescu was a atheist, and he didn't ban churches, but like most communist countries, they were not
a fan.
Well, and this is something I didn't. Well, and this is something I didn't mention earlier, is that there was a really weird relationship between the Orthodox Church, the Romanian Orthodox Church, and the communist government in the 50s. In that, like, they gave. It was a weird thing. Like, not only did they not like like they gave them buildings and stuff. They were like, if you guys like shut the fuck up and stay there, then
They were very big into religious freedom.
Yeah.
Because they knew, probably
The
because they knew
Romanians,
that's the way it goes. But as a result, they had the freedom churches did, to have Westerners in and out of their doors 24/7.
Which is a terrible idea.
They started, there was a church in Timișoara. So there was a church in Timișoara, which was like one of the major churches in Romania. And they had been taking in representatives of the U.S. government to try to organize protests and resistance movements. At this point, the head of the Romanian security service has defected to the U.S. for hundreds of thousands of dollars, unsurprisingly. But in doing so, he didn't get his family out with him. So Ceaușescu imprisoned his daughter and his wife. I mean, I would do the same thing. Fuck off. And as a result, Radio Free Europe starts broadcasting these stories that this guy says about Ceaușescu. And so I've read his book, and I do not recommend doing it because it has to be fiction, because he portrays Ceaușescu as like a cartoon villain. I mean, everything he does is like, let's murder this person, let's kill this person.
Smash people
like,
with pianos.
Yeah, like everything is just like murder, kill, death. Like he's watching pornography. He talks about how his wife was like, constantly making sexual like moves, in public towards Nikolaya. So like, but still very weird, creepy shit that you.
And it's the kind of stuff that like that's the only source for all of those things.
It's what I was talking about anyway.
And it's like the defectors from the DPRK. You make up as much like people they
smear
love
as much
that
as you
shit.
can.
You make up the most outlandish stories you can.
But anyway, so they start reading excerpts of this book over Radio Free Europe.
Oh Jesus!
So then all the Romanians are like, oh shit.
So some of the Romanians are like,
Not all
oh
of them,
shit, yeah. And and there's a lot of discontent. The church, this particular church, organizes a religious protest for whatever reason. I didn't get the details on that. But in this religious protest, towards the end of the night, probably U.S. agitators start, instead of it being a protest of religion, start chanting like "Down with Ceaușescu," "Let's take down Ceaușescu," return Romania, to the people, down with Ceaușescu. And they start this big march where they take, I think it's like 1,000 people. And they start marching towards, around. Ceaușescu says that he told them not to fire, but anyway, the soldiers opened fire on the crowd, who were, at this point, they were destroying buildings, burning buildings, breaking windows of the government buildings, the people's buildings, and they opened fire. The number that died is very contested figure because there's proof,
no way to know.
There's proof that they planted bodies. So they said it was 1,000 people that were killed in this protest. But people went back. There's video footage. People went back and there were bodies from morgues, like that have like the
autopsy
sutures.
Autopsy,
and that like prove that at least some of these bodies were not, not real.
Jesus Christ!
I mean, like
they like went
shit
to
was going south.
Still bad, but then putting like bodies from what a nightmare.
And at the same time, throughout the
and this is the 80s.
This is 89.
Jesus Christ!
This is 89.
This is I should have talked about it earlier, but one of the ways in which they dealt with the economic issues was they started creating a bunch of large apartment complexes in order to house people, because it's cheaper to feed and heat and house people in centralized locations. But bulldozing towns does not go over well.
Yeah, that's not great.
And so it was a wildly unpopular position. And that's part of, what led to this moment.
Well, and that was part of the thing with like the palace of the parliament that they built. They had they were bulldozing a bunch of neighborhoods and stuff.
Shit, yeah.
Well, because that building, just for the record, I looked it up. It has a floor area of 3,930,000 square feet.
Jesus Christ.
It's massive.
It's huge.
Why?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Anyway, so they had to knock down a couple neighborhoods to fit that in there.
Yeah. So the next day, I don't know if it's the next day. I can't remember if it's the next day or not, but Ceaușescu, he comes out on like the rotunda in front of the people of Bucharest, and he, gives this speech where he's like, we're still doing great. Communism is awesome. We're going to increase
fine.
Everything's okay.
We're going to increase wages by 15%. We're going to increase pensions by 15%.
Damn.
He starts talking about the things that are going to happen, later in the year. And he says, as for the events in Timișoara, he says,
don't worry about it.
He basically says like
news.
agent provocateurs in like the West are, have infiltrated our country and are here to take it from you. The same way that all of the invaders of the past have taken it from you.
Damn.
And he said, and we will not allow that to happen. He comes back in. There's so much weird shit that goes on. There were people sniping citizens.
That was weird.
The hell?
I don't know who.
It has to be agent provocateurs. Like it has to be.
I don't know who was
plants.
doing that, but yeah, like there were people
just
getting
sniping
just like
random citizens.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just killing
Christ,
people.
Yeah, and I don't know who was doing it.
Yeah,
I couldn't
and then
find.
nobody knows
No one
who
knows.
did it.
They're just,
They said it was just the government. Like, I mean, maybe, but there's no proof. There's no evidence that it was.
Some of these people
but like,
were just nobodies,
Well,
and so
right.
why are they just killing random people?
randomly
right?
shooting people?
Yeah.
It
doesn't
was
make
fucked.
sense.
The whole thing was just
The whole
such a
thing
fucking
is
nightmare.
fucking crazy. So this is the 21st or 22nd December.
Yeah.
Damn.
And there is some rioting outside of the like government building that they were in, and they end up like they say okay to the commander, like he tells the military commander, I can't remember his name, don't fire on the protesters, just keep them out of the building, blah blah blah, and he leaves in a helicopter. And after he leaves, the military commander opens the doors and lets people in. He's like, all right, come on in, guys. And so they just like loot the place, destroy the place, and from this point forward they're on the run. But like I said before, they didn't flee the country. They could have, and they didn't.
Well, they tried to get the helicopter. I mean, they tried to get on their helicopter.
They
had,
were
like,
on the helicopter.
what?
They landed it and then got in a car because it like ran out of fuel or some shit.
Yeah, there was some weird stuff with the helicopter. Like the pilot was like, "I'm not going to go any further." Or they ran out of gas
Sure
or
you did,
something.
buddy. Yeah.
I don't know. It was weird. But anyway,
And so then they end up getting recaptured. But during this process, the people that orchestrated this coup, who were nobodies, like just random people from the previous government, like the guy that got kicked out of the party, he ends up coming back and leading the party again. There were people from the current government that were a part of it, and there were people from outside of the government that were a part of it. But it was a small group of people that abolished the Central Committee and the government in general. Okay, and so on the 22nd, when they capture Nicolaya and Elena and they take them to this building to have a trial, a quote unquote trial. And they say, basically like they level corruption against him. They're like, how are you going to answer for these like monstrous crimes that you've committed? And he basically says, I'm not going to answer to you. You aren't a legitimate government body. He said, I will only answer to the National Assembly. And they keep trying to like get him to answer questions. And he keeps saying like, I refuse to answer these questions. You aren't a legitimate body. I will only answer to the Grand National Assembly. Elaine is there with him. She's like getting pissed off. You can see, cause she's like mumbling comments throughout the whole trial.
And they also accuse him of genocide at one point.
Because they accused him of killing protesters.
Right.
And he's like, I didn't kill the protesters. In fact, he said, I said over the air, over the radio and TV, not to shoot on protesters. He said, there's record of it. I was not responsible for that. I have no idea about, any genocide. He said, but I will not respond to you. I will only respond to the Grand National Assembly. The TV cuts out for whatever reason.
Huh. Wonder why.
Imagine that. The TV cuts back in, and then this judge, whoever the fuck it is, declares them guilty.
Jesus.
And then they're drug out back and shot on Christmas, like 2 days later.
Christmas Day.
They're drug out and shot on Christmas Day in 1989, shot in the head next to each other.
Oh, damn.
They died as they lived.
Next to each other.
Next to each other, yeah.
Yeah. And everything afterwards.
This could be us B-Plan.
shit show.
Yeah, I mean, I'll briefly just cover. I mean, it is very brief, but just kind of saying like, you know, in 2016, the like official EU Statistics Bureau said that half of Romania's population, a full 50%, suffered from quote material and social deprivation. And so this means that half of the Romanian population couldn't afford at least 5 items out of several included on a list that included like face unexpected expenses, take a 1-week holiday away from home, afford a meal with meat, chicken, or fish every second day, keep your home adequately warm, a car for personal use, a whole bunch of other things. 50% of Romanians couldn't do these things. Nearly half of the children in 2016, nearly half of the children in Romania, 49.2%, were at risk of poverty or social exclusion. This was the highest percentage amongst EU member states. The healthcare system in Romania has been on the verge of collapse for like since the 90s. The country's hospitals are deeply in debt and routinely run out of basic supplies such as stitches and antibiotics. Hospitals. So we didn't mention this earlier, but back during the 80s, the government had a really questionable AIDS policy and that they didn't like acknowledge that it existed, which is not great. And they also had this really weird policy of like, we just do blood transfusions for babies all the time. Just like give them a little pep, you know?
Oh my
give them a little extra blood.
I missed that. I didn't read that part.
Yeah. Well, and so in the 90s, half of all childhood's AIDS cases were Romanian kids.
No.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's
but
awful.
so anyway, so in the 90s and onward, hospitals, they couldn't pay for the fucking AIDS drugs. I mean, it was hard to pay for them before, but like they definitely in capitalism couldn't pay for it. Yeah, it's rough, but a slight positive is that there was an anti-communist foundation. I didn't write down which one it was. Sorry. In 2011, they took a poll asking like for Romanian people. Half of the country agreed that, quote, life was better in Romania before 1989.
54%, yeah.
Yeah, and then 61% said, quote, communism's a good idea. And then, but yeah, since even, Romania owed all this debt during Ceaușescu's time, but like since then, there's like $150 billion in foreign debt and austerity imposed from above. And like shit's fucked up. Like it's... And this is one of the things that Justin and I were talking about before we were doing this episode is just like, yeah, Ceaușescu like was a fucking weirdo and like he sucked and made a ton of bad decisions, but like it's not like Romania now is good. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, Romania in the 80s was terrible because of the austerity, because they had no options because of all the like weird political bullshit. But Romania is one of the like it's pretty low on the list of like how of European countries like how they're doing. It's pretty far down there. And so and I just a couple little things about after 1989, after the communist government fell. So that happened in December of 1989. Early in 1990, King Michael, who's been living in Switzerland, he's like 80 years old at this point.
Jesus Christ.
He's like, oh, I'm coming back. so he flies into Bucharest.
Totally.
He gets arrested and deported like that same day, which is just really funny.
It's my moment.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, this is me. And then he just gets kicked out immediately. So that was nice. He died in 2017. And as far as I can tell, he didn't have any sons, so there's no line. So like, hopefully, I mean, I'm sure there's some dipshits in Romania who are like, we gotta bring back the monarchy, but like, he didn't have any sons, so it'd be tough. You'd have to find some dude.
God, he'd
like,
be a shit dad.
Like third. Well, he had daughters. He had some like third cousin twice removed or something. I'm sure you can find. Anyway, and then just another thing about the Palace of the Parliament is So they didn't finish it till like they finished it in the 90s after the communist government like wasn't there. So yeah, like I said, it's this enormous building. Right now, the Parliament does meet there, but it also hosts the National Museum of Contemporary Art, the Museum of the Palace, and the Museum of Communist Totalitarianism.
Whoa! They need to.
And then. But honestly, 70% of the building is empty just because it's so fucking big.
So
they can't
massive.
fill it.
People take over that building and just live in there.
It's called the people. They call it the people. They renamed it the People's House after the.
They should actually make it the People's House.
Quote unquote Romanian Revolution, which is not a revolution. Like
no, it was a coup by every definition of the word.
Yeah, it was horseshit. Anyway, yeah. So that is the I mean, do you have anything else to say?
No.
Series of
Basically,
unfortunate
that's
events.
the really unfortunate history of Romania. Like, just a series of like just falling down a staircase for like
Yikes.
70 years.
Oh my god, that's
Many apologies to our Romanian
I
comrades.
mean,
I'm
like,
sorry.
I hope that, I was reading a thing about like lots of like strikes in Romania and like, hey, that's awesome. Like, I hope the Romanian workers rise up.
right.
It's from my research, your country seems fucked, and it seems like it's been fucked for a while. I apologize, but
our
Same, though.
country's also
Yeah.
fucked.
yeah, I mean, I am not. I am in a position to recognize fucked countries because I live in one.
Yeah.
But no, that's that. Yeah, that's basically it. Fucking Romania's weird. Fucking Ceaușescu. What a weird,
What a weird
complicated.
That was a wild ride. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. Like
didn't
we
know any
laughed,
of that.
we cried. We yeah. So
We held a scepter.
held the scepter. We
Looked
denied that AIDS
uncomfortable.
existed. Just kidding. Proles has never denied AIDS exists.
We built a statue to Vlad the Impaler.
You built.
Oh my
they built,
God.
I mean, so one thing we didn't mention this. They built a statue at one point in like the 70s or 80s. They built a statue to Antonescu, which was the fascist leader. Like, sort of. Not quite a rehabilitation, but again, like, hey,
Jesus
like
Christ.
he was an important historical figure. Fuck off! You don't build
Yeah.
statues to
Yeah.
fascist
Yeah.
Well, I
fascist
mean,
leaders.
They put a fascist leader, and they're like, wait, let's put someone who's even more fascist. So I
Yeah,
don't.
so it was a nightmare. Ceaușescu was a
It's not great.
wild dude.
That,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wild dude.
I don't.
Complicated ass
Complicated.
I don't know what to
dude.
make of him.
I don't either, man. I mean, ultimately, I think he was like not great, but again,
No.
Romania is not in a good position now.
No.
So like,
It's just like,
it sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks.
all around.
It
not,
sucks.
I'm glad we're
Not
done.
a happy tale.
I'm glad we're done with this episode.
Throw out all the notes.
It hurt. It hurt.
This was
researching.
rough. This was a
Yeah.
rough one because like it was hard finding sources.
Yeah.
Reading the sources sucked, and then talking about it was
Yeah.
terrible because like all the terrible things that happened. So
And it was a lonely room, you know.
And what, like, you know,
and then
yeah.
there were only 3 of us, which is never fun.
and
but
there were, you know, there was a lot of joy in Romania during that period as well, which is always sad to like.
yeah, I mean,
It's not like everything was bad. I mean, there
Yeah,
was
no, of
people
course.
danced and laughed and
yeah, people
smiled
people
and-
had lives.
Yeah.
People had people had lives. People had like people lived, and they were
Yeah.
like human lives happened at this point, and we always have to remember that.
Right.
Right.
But also like, and I mean, human lives are happening now,
Like,
but it's
yeah.
just, it seems like a lot more of them are in
Poverty and
poverty.
struggle.
So that's not great. Anyway,
Oh, well.
man,
land this plane home.
fuck this.
Fuck it.
Fuck this shit.
Well, that, I mean, I certainly learned. So, well, thanks to Justin and Ethan for sharing that. Very.
We did the Lord's work.
The Lord's work. Thanks
Did
for
somebody's
trekking
work,
through it. You
goddamn.
know, yeah. At least thank you for looking into this and sharing it. At least we
yeah,
know
we
now.
did this so you don't have to.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks. I'm never gonna read those books you
Don't do
talked
it.
about.
Every single book that we're gonna link like sucks.
Sucks. Yeah.
So
It's not suggested reading.
it's just
like
what
sources.
we used.
It's just what we read.
They
yeah.
all suck. So
The torture you went through. All right. Well, yeah. So as I said, there'd be some not suggested readings, but, you know
our
what
sources, our sources.
they got their information from in the show notes. So feel free to look at that if you know if you want more pain, I guess.
I recommend against it.
Our sponsors are all of our excellent fans on Patreon. As always, we have way too many to read each time. That sounds really full of ourselves.
There's a lot
Way
of them.
too many to read. Like we're the coolest.
There's a lot of them.
But
You
since
want to
last
read
time-
300 people?
That's because you weren't here
Let's
when
do
we used
this.
to read all of them.
Oh god, we were here for like 15 minutes.
It was like a 10-minute process to go through all of the patrons, and that's why we stopped doing it.
I'm just saying.
Okay, say it however you want to say it.
No, I was just pointing that out.
They're just saying.
It's
Alex is just saying.
I'm just saying. Okay, so here are some newbies. Alex, but not this Alex. Alan
Nice.
Iverson Praxis. Braden, Cal, Captain Thrashbeard, K, Carlos, Conbro, Daniel, what? Diddling Quokka?
Yikes.
We're just gonna move on.
Food stamp. Just a single food stamp.
Just
I
one.
like that. Fan of food stamp. Gray, Heather, Hydrophobic, Joe Dirte, John, Jonathan, Joseph, our boy. He's back from the grave. Julian, Corey, Lauren, Logan, Mats, Maxime, Naruto Filth Demon. Nice. I'll be talking to you in the Discord. Paul, The Real Angles. Thanks. Will The Real Angles stand up? Roman, Scott, Sean, Shanji, Stone Socialist, okay.
Nice.
Tariq, Tom, Travis, and Val. I almost said Van Halen, but it's Val Halen. It was so hard to say Val Halen and not Van Halen. All of these people are inspiring and revolutionary and make it easier for us to make this podcast, which is kind of a bunger sometimes. Also, we want to thank Ransom Notes for our intro music. Check him out on SoundCloud. Please don't forget to rate and review if you want. Visit Proles.
Smash that motherfucking like button.
Smash that like button. Give us a big ol', a great review. Be like, yo, these bros are the best. No, thanks for tuning in. And solidarity, forever.
Fuck Vlad the Impaler.
So that was what will be the next to the last Proles of the Roundtable episodes. And I did want to make note that there was a bit of a mistake there kind of early on. It was a discussion between Justin and Ethan about the group which was disbanded by Hitler following his ascension. That would have been the Freikorps rather than the Stormtroopers. And other than that, I want to thank you for listening. I know it's probably a bit of a bittersweet kind of thing, but it was very entertaining.